Things first, I'm Jenna Wolf. That's the Hall of Famer Chris Carter. That is a very well-dressed Nick Wright. Usually we pointed it that way, but today we will say you look...
Thank you very much. Cece, I like that shirt a lot. There's little pre-show hazing going on, so I haven't been able to get my tweet out. It's 134 shows in a row.
Let's tell people what we're hazing you about.
No need to be totally honest with you. Appreciate that, though. Good to see you this morning, my brother. Don't you dare leave me hanging to start the show. We'll start it off poorly. Good to see you, man. How are you?
Nick looks like he's doing an interview.
Yeah, for?
Either a boarding school.
Or?
Either a university where he's trying to be a professor.
I'm going to stab
an all-boys grade school?
Or definitely a very privileged fraternity.
You look very good. Just take it as a...
I like that.
See, I'm gonna pull back the curtain just for a moment before we get to sports. CC constantly says I should wear more white shirts, but I like colorful things. I like patterns. I like maybe a more bold look. So today I wear the white shirt to try to please my partner. And what does he say? He says I should be pledging Phi Beta Kappa or some nonsense. Don't need that in my life.
Either on Capitol Hill or something.
What's the bottom line? No more pleasing your partners.
Exactly. Right.
Exactly. Let's all stay in our own lane. Let us start the show, shall we? It is officially that time of the NBA season when wins mean everything and nagging injuries are scrutinized. Let's start with the wins. Warriors beating up on the Spurs last night behind 37 points out of Kevin Durant. Let's go to the injuries. Steph Curry rolled his ankle in the first quarter and did not return. He'll be out at least the next 2 games. Golden State, though, picked up their 7th straight win. They're now a half game back of the Rockets, who didn't play last night. We'll start with you, Chris Carter. What do you think? Can the Warriors win an NBA title if they don't have Steph Curry there, if he's out of the lineup?
Well, let's go there. I mean, can they win a title without Clay? No. Can they win a title with potentially their most valuable player in Draymond because of his versatility? No. Can they win a title without KD? No. Can they win a title without Steve Kerr? No. So can they win a title without Steph? No. All these 5 things, I believe, would make the Warriors very, very special. If you can't attack Chris Paul, if you can't attack James Harden on the offensive end with the force and the variety for which Steph can do it, no, you're not going to be able to beat Houston. I mean, this is what makes a special team special. We always do this with teams that are really, really good. No different than Philadelphia. Oh, my goodness, the quarterback's hurt. Think they'll be able to do this? No, they won't be able to do it. They actually were able to do it. The reason why, because in football, it's more of a team sport compared to basketball is a superstar-driven sport.
Even though they did it last night.
But not for a 7-game series.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to do it for a 7-game series. And you saw what Kevin Durant had to do for them to be able to win this. He had to be super, super special at the end. And you can key more on Clay and on KD. And even though it's a huge task to be able to do, you're going to have a better chance of shutting those 2 down than shutting the 3 down. And also what it opens up on the court. You know, when you have all these shooters, and this is what makes Golden State one of the special teams we've ever seen in the NBA. So we just can't, when they lose one, no, they wouldn't be special. If they lose any of the 5 components that I mentioned, that being the coach and the 4 superstar players, no, they're just like the rest of the teams, or they're not as good as Houston and some other teams.
So this is where I totally disagree with you. I do not think they can win without Steph. I do think Steph is their most important player. I do think since they added Kevin Durant, they could lose any of those 3 other guys. And obviously their chances of winning would be damaged, but they could still win the title.
Anyone but Steph.
Anyone but Steph. I think Steph is the player that unlocks this team. It used to be Draymond, but now that they have Kevin Durant, defensively, if they do lose Draymond, they can still play an offensively dominant lineup and have some rim protection.
I believe when you get in a series, Draymond Green becomes more important, and the intangibles that you don't see and they're not on the stat sheet, they come up in a 7-game series where the ball is slowed down more, and I believe he is more of a dominant defender. Last night, they didn't need him. A triple-double.
Right.
I mean, he's very, very important, not to cut you off and everything. And in a series, I believe he's more important than the regular season.
I want to make this clear. If Clay or KD or Draymond or even the head coach Steve Kerr went out, if we found out today or tomorrow they're done for the year, their chances of winning a title are damaged drastically. But if we found out today that Steph Curry were done for the year, to me, their chances of winning the title go away. What he does for them from a space spacing perspective and from a terror inflicted on the defense perspective, I mean, we can just look at it. With Steph Curry on the court this year, they score 120 points per 100 possessions. That is way better than the all-time NBA record the Rockets currently hold. Without Steph Curry on the court this year, they're at 106 points per 100 possessions. That's a good number, but not even an elite number for this season. They outscore teams by 15 points total per 100 possessions with Steph. Without him, it's around 6. Like, he is now. Meanwhile, without KD this year, they're 7-1. Now, last year they wouldn't have won the finals without KD, but I have seen this team, granted with a deeper bench, win a title without Kevin Durant. I have not seen this team have any high-level success without this guy who now has suffered his 4th right ankle injury in the last 2 months.
So it's not like this is just a little sprained ankle like we saw with Anthony Davis that may leave back. This isn't the first time he's had this. So when you talk about nagging injuries, something that's going to plague you when there's less than 20 games left in the season, and you're talking about how you need all 4 or 5 components to make this team tick, how worried are you about Steph Curry?
And it's just not a nagging injury. He talks about the last 2 months, but if you look at Steph's career, what would be the one thing that's plagued him? It'd be ankle injuries. When they questioned were they going to sign him to an extension when his first contract was coming up due, the conversation was his ankles. So, no, this is not something new. If Steph Curry, besides his jump shot, there was something going to happen to him or something that would be able to slow down smaller guards when they start losing their legs, that being knees and ankles. Steph hadn't had any problem with his knees, but his ankles have given him trouble. So it's not something that's new. It's definitely something that's problematic and definitely something that we should watch, because where they were playing, the level they were playing at before Steph got hurt, was they had really made a push in the second half. Yeah, we talk about Houston. They won 16 in a row. They needed to win 16 in a row just to have a half-game lead. So Steph and the Warriors have been playing tremendous basketball since the All-Star break. Yeah, this is not what you want to see in the last 20 games, your star point guard being out of lineup.
But this is what tends to happen in the NBA basketball, where you have a guy or a key player who headed into the playoffs might not be 100%. The Warriors have been, and I give them credit for this, but it's just the reality, incredibly fortunate about their own injuries and their opponents' injuries in the postseason.
They have been the recipient over a 3-year window of a lot of injuries.
Enormous injury luck for them. The 2 years they won the title, the first year, every playoff series they played, their opponent was without their starting point guard. That's extra beneficial when your starting point guard is the damn league MVP. Last year, en route to winning the title, when they played Portland, why was Portland even a playoff team last year? Because of what Nurkic had done in the second half of the season. He's injured. That's their first-round series. Their second-round series, why is Utah there? Because of who Rudy Gobert had been. What happens to him? He's injured. In their third-round series, why is San Antonio there? Because Kawhi Leonard was a top 3 MVP. He plays 2.5 quarters of that whole series. So this Warriors team, meanwhile, when we talk about what's the biggest injury they've suffered, what, that Andrew Bogut missed 2 games of the NBA Finals 2 years ago?
Iguodala had a cold 3 years ago.
No, I mean, and I know people will say, well, Steph hurt his knee. Steph did hurt his knee the year they lost to Cleveland. But he was back by round 2, scoring 17 points in overtime of a round 2 playoff game, and didn't miss time the rest of the way.
And pronounced that I'm back.
Right. Explain to the world I'm back. So the Warriors have been incredibly fortunate when it comes to injuries. Even last year, when we thought Durant might have blown out his knee, the fact that it was only a sprain when Zaza flailed into him and he was full go for the postseason. Like, this is what happens when you play 100-game season after 100-game season.
And it also supports why you've said it's hard for a team to be able to win 3 out of 4. It's not that they're not good. It's not that they're not great. But the numbers don't lie in their favor. They've been fortunate. They've been on the good side of things. Now, how long will this be able to last? I know that's something that you've talked about in year number 4, those 62 playoff games that they've played and just the overall attrition of what the team has gone through.
But quick question. You wonder if it matters in the early rounds. So you saw what Kevin Durant could step up and do, you know, without Steph Curry. Does it matter in the first round, maybe the second round, if he's here for a game, out for a game, as long as he's here for the big opponents, the big games?
And this is the main reason why I thought OKC was a problem. Not a championship team, But right now, they're sitting at number 7. If they started the playoffs today, Golden State would be playing against OKC. Now, Steph, you want to be hobbled in that? And then just couple that. We don't know who they might play in the second series, but they may get Portland. So the guard play is so strong.
Yeah.
And especially with someone like Steph, I can understand why people would argue who's the most important. It's Steph. Because you can't replace his shooting, and you can't replace his ball handling.
Right.
Kevin Durant, we might be able to replace some of the things that he does offensively. But Steph, that shooting and his overall ability to be able to dribble the ball and handle the ball and run the offense, that is hard to replace.
And when Chris says that shooting, it is Steph's impact on the offense without touching the ball. It is the gravity on the defense. When you have the greatest deep range shooter in NBA history, and he can stand 34 feet from the basket, and you have to guard him as if he is 14 feet from the basket, the way that opens up the rest of the court.
Yes.
So could it matter this year in the West? Unless they draw the Clippers, Nuggets, or Jazz, one of those teams is going to make the playoffs. Unless they draw them in the first round, any of the teams they could play, San Antonio, Minnesota, Oklahoma City, New Orleans, in the first round, if Steph were not there, all of a sudden, that's a series they could lose. 100%, that's a series they could lose because the West is so deep 3 through 7 right now.
All right, let's take a break. Coming up, we've been talking about it all season. Where do you think LeBron James might play next season? The list is finally starting to dwindle down. We're down to 4.
Down to 4.
Next on First Things First.
My New York City basketball league.